What is up, CSGs? In this video, I'm going to talk about why I think Fred VanVleet was the perfect signing for the Houston Rockets to bring into our franchise to get us to the next level. And I'm going to make my case using clips from a new mini movie that was just dropped on the Rockets YouTube channel called Fred VanVleet on Point. It's a great little mini movie kind of detailing how he got here and what his perspectives and views are on the Rockets team and some of their players. So you guys enjoy this video. I haven't done one of these in a while, so y'all tap in. Enjoy. The Rockets Chop Shop is your one-stop shop for all your basketball needs, for highlights, analysis, podcasts. We do it all here at the Rockets Chop Shop. Make sure you hit the like button on the videos that you watch if you enjoy them. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications from all the great drops that we have on the channel. Also, you can visit the Chop Shop merch store and get you some of the swaggiest gear in the Houston Rockets kingdom. And if you want, you can always support the channel directly through donations. And if you want, you can support us through our partnerships with our sponsors. The Rockets Chop Shop is made by fans, for fans, and we're gonna keep rocking and keep dropping that heat.
This is something I know.
Fred has always been a step above his time. Whatever somebody told him that he couldn't do, he did. Now, he's not going to make it to the league. He made it. He said he wasn't going to stay. He stayed. Oh, he never All-Star game. Oh, he won with as a championship. Now he's a star of a team. Never doubt Fred VanVleet. Never.
So some people could argue that Fred VanVleet is probably the most consequential move that the Rockets made towards pivoting from the doldrums that we were in as a basketball franchise prior to the arrival of him and the rest of the cast that kind of helped change the culture here. I would say Ime Udoka is, but as we talk about impact players from all the veterans that we signed, it's easily Fred VanVleet. It's easily him as the player that has had the most impact because one, he's the point guard, and you guys know the point guard is like the quarterback. Everybody eats based on what they do. So he's the guy that's setting up the table for, the other players to eat. He's the guy that is, helping kind of get these guys ready, especially on the defensive end, trying to preach to them the things that they need to do to improve upon there. But I just think that his impact is really nothing that we could really put a grade on. You look at his numbers on the season, nothing crazy, hella efficient. I think he averaged a lot of career highs here in Houston, got to play with a lot of young, talented players. And, you got to see some flashes of why the Rockets really went after him. I mean, there were games that he carried us. There were games where he was just balling. There were games that he struggled. There's some times, y'all know how I am with him and the end of game situations. But through and through, Fred has been a consummate professional. And I think his impact is something that's felt both on and off the court because of the type of player and his journey to the NBA. You got to remember, this is a guy that came in as an undrafted player, earned his way through the G League, got on the Raptors team, earned his way to becoming a backup, earned his way to becoming a starter, and then, played in a championship and actually won a championship, playing significant minutes, guarding Steph Curry. You guys remember that series between the Kawhi Raptors and the hobbled Golden State Warriors. But Fred was on Steph. That was his primary assignment. He hit some big shots. So having a player of that caliber, that work ethic, get it out the mud type of player for a lot of talented young athletes that we have in Houston, to me is a perfect combination. And I think what he's brought so far for the team is just kind of a match made in heaven because we have a lot of talented players, as I'm going to talk about later on down the line. But a lot of guys in these situations that are drafted really high, they feel like the world should be just handed to them. And you get a guy that worked his way from undrafted to becoming a all-star player in his peak. I think it really does show them the steps you got to take to become a professional and being successful in the NBA.
My job is to perform, but another half of my job is to help these guys along as well. That's a fine balance sometimes.
Ball's been in Jaylen's hands a lot down the stretch. VanVleet had to the runner. Can you believe that one?
I'll shoot it every time. I don't have a problem with that. But, that's not why I came here. I didn't come to Houston to dribble the air out the ball the whole game, you know what I mean? I came here to win and help guys develop.
There's a lot of discussion about whether Fred VanVleet's contract is worth or overpriced, or we pay too much for him is the Rockets. I'm going to talk about that a little more in detail towards the end of the video. But as far as the value that he brings, you got to really quantify or try to quantify what he does for our team. You got to, first of all, think about the caliber of player that he is. Like, he's not a star, right? He's not a star, but I think if you're talking about role players, starting point guards in the NBA, there's no team in the league that would not want Fred VanVleet on their roster as a starter. So that's one. And then now juxtapose that, contrast that with the Rockets, where we were from 2020 to 2023 as one of the dumpster fires in the NBA. Whether the perception is accurate as far as what the Rockets were doing intentionally, regardless, the media, the fans perceived our team as being bad. Like, we were trash, right? We lost 20 games, 15 games, 17 games. Like, it was a lot of losing streaks. So much commentary on how our players were struggling. I remember the JJ Redick saying Jabari looks like a player, a person that's out at sea that's drowning without a life raft, without a life vest. That's crazy. That's crazy to say on a national podcast. Everybody just talking about what is going on in Houston. We know about the locker room culture with Kevin Porter Jr., some, stuff about Jaylen Green, just the lack of structure, the John Wall situation, the lack of structure within that team, and honestly, where they were heading. I think that, as I said earlier, the bringing in Ime Udoka, bringing in Fred and vets like Dylan really, really did right the ship for this team, because when you start off like that historically in the NBA, it does not end pretty. Usually teams that start off losing as much as we did, in that kind of milieu of not having structure, veteran accountability, not winning, it usually goes left. But being able to pivot from that and instilling instant culture, like instantly bringing in a Fred, is a huge part of that. When you're thinking about, what his value is on the team, this is a dude that he could go and try to go be a number one somewhere else. And I made a video, I think 2 summers ago, about the importance of veterans in the NBA, and saying that being a vet is an actual job. It's not like something you just thrust on anybody else. Like, you just think that a guy's been in the league 10 years, I'm going to make you a vet on my team. That usually doesn't work out well. We saw what happened with John Wall, right? A lot of the vets, you have to go into the contracts with them knowing exactly what their role is. And what Fred is saying is that he knows exactly what his role is. He could try to be a ball hog and try to score 1,000,000 points, try to do everything, try to make an all-star team, all-NBA team, try to get his next big contract. But to have a guy of his caliber to come into Houston in the state it is, what it was, to essentially take a step back to allow unproven players to try to reach their potential, I think there's no value you could put on that. That's one of the most impressive things to me, and there's not a lot of players that would have done that. I know there was a lot of, let's go get James Harden and this and that. To me, one of the key things, like, people mix up how good a player is and how good of a vet a player is. Nobody is saying like James Harden wouldn't have been a great vet, but you heard him say it when he first went to the Clippers. He is a system. James Harden is too good to be that type of vet. He was too good at that point. Maybe not right now, but at that point, he was too good to play that role that Fred is playing, where you're conceding to the Jaylens and Shanguns of the world. And so, to me, that is really where the value comes in. You got to balance having a player that's good enough, right? That's good enough to actually impact winning, which he was. At the same time, has enough of an ego check to be able to let the young guys, let the babies do it. Let them learn. Y'all know my analogy of the training wheels. Let them ride the training wheels till they can steady that bike on their own. Then you can take it off and let them fly. But to me, what you're paying for is not just a player that helps you win. You're paying for an extra coach on the court. You're paying for a leader, a professional, a guys that are going to help those guys learn how to be their best. And I think that's worth every penny.
You see the leadership talking to his young fella. He's letting Shingun know, this is what I need from you right now. Lock in, trust me. When you're open, I'm going to make the right play. Hang in there with me.
Watching that like that, I probably was telling him to roll. I'll tell Alpy to roll probably like 100 times a game. He's so good and talented.
Oh my goodness! Uh-oh!
He can do things not many people can do. But sometimes the answer is the most simple one. You know what I mean? Basketball is a simple game.
VanVleet, high screen, back to Shingun, diving down the lane, stuffed it down!
That's exactly what he told him. Be ready, young fella, and he delivered. That combination between Fred and LP just so lethal.
One player that was impacted the most by the arrival of Fred VanVleet was our center, Alperen Şengün. And, you know, you guys know my philosophy, center, guard, two-man game. It's a dance. One without the other doesn't work, right? And to Şengün's credit, he's been able to flash being a good player with subpar guard play for most of his career, with the likes of Kevin Porter and Jaylen as he was learning to become a better guard. We saw flashes with him with DJ Augustine where you got to see, okay, there's something there with him as a two-man partner. Now the Rockets are, you know, we rank very good, you know, when they use the word terms on synergy, the Rockets are ranked very good. I think we're like, you know, in the top probably 15, I think top 15 in the NBA, top 10 or something like that in pick and roll points per possession. So as a team that was really, really bad, horrible in pick and roll, we were almost dead last for 3 consecutive years. To come out and be a top 10 pick and roll team this season is nothing short of a miracle. And that is attributed incredibly largely to Fred VanVleet. Like, he transformed that whole dynamic to a fault because it was so efficient that they started spamming it and the NBA adjusted. And I think the efficiency got worn off a little bit, but that Alp and Fred pick and roll, deadly. We beat a lot of teams using that going down the stretch. But, you know, going forward, what do we do with that? And it was really, really impactful. Fred ranks top 15 in the league in pick and roll ball handler in points per possession. And of eligible players that run 5 or more pick and rolls per game, he ranks 15 out of like 56. So he's up there with the, you know, Hardens and Halliburtons and all these top elite guards in running pick and roll. And Şengün is, you know, he's unique in a sense because if you look at the big men that run roll man in pick and rolls, the frequency that he did it as, there's only about 14 of them. Hold on, I actually pulled that up for you guys to look at this. So right now I'm looking at this. There is 14 big men that ran 3 or more roll man pick and roll plays in the NBA per game, right? 3 or more. So they're rolling 3 or more times every single game in the NBA. And you're looking at the number one player when it relates to points per possession is Miles Turner. Miles Turner is number one. And when we look at these stats, guys, you guys know me, right? You guys know I could stat you to death. I'm trying to balance it out so I can give you some narrative and some stat. But one thing about whenever you're looking at statistics, you always have to have the insight of context. And I feel like I see that a lot on Twitter. People throw out stats. They don't understand basketball enough to really put context around it. So it's just like a lot of agenda pushing. But let's think about why Miles Turner is number one in the NBA in points per possession and pick and roll. Because he does 2 things that will generate a lot of good points for that play type. He can dunk as a lob threat, and he shoots threes at a high clip. So especially that 3-point shooting is a very big part of it. Most of the highest, efficiency pick and roll big men are the guys that are rolling to the basket and just dunking, like we saw with Clint Capella. We see Jared Allen is number 3 on the list. And the other type of efficiency that's going to give you high points is you shoot threes because you get an extra point from a 2. So top 3 is Miles, Chet, and Jared Allen. So that's dual threat, dunker. Then you go to the Brandon Clark, which is a dunker, Kristaps, 3-point shooter, Jokic, hybrid, Domantas Sabonis, he's more of a roller in the likes of the Şengün. You get to AD, Joel Embiid, then you get to Alperen Şengün. So Alperen Şengün falls between Joel Embiid and Nikola Vucevic in pick and roll man efficiency as far as in scoring, generating points. And as a 21-year-old, being right behind Embiid in points per possession, it's pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to hold you. So he ranks 10th in that category. And I'm saying all that to say you have Fred VanVleet, who ranks 15 out of 56 eligible players. You got Alperen Şengün, 10 out of 15 eligible players. And then once you look at the list I just said, and I want you guys to notice the line of demarcation for that list is Anthony Davis, in my opinion. Maybe Sabonis, Jokic, Sabonis, Davis. These are the type of players that don't really take the easy buckets. And these are the players that they score based off of their own self-creation. A lot of big men are feed me type of players where they are totally dependent on their guards. Whereas we have big men that fall in that tier with the Embiids, the AD, Sabonis to a lesser extent, Jokic, of course, Şengün, Vucevic. These are guys that they generate their own shots, whether it's in the mid-range, whether it's trying to attack in the post. Once they get the roll, once they get a roll, they stop. And for me, this is it's a mixed bag because you get kind of, it hurts your efficiency. As we can see, Şengün is he's efficiency is pretty good, 57% EFG and pick and rolls. But just like Fred was saying in the video, like take the easy stuff. And I think that's something that I want to see going forward for him as that relationship develops. And to me, side note, apart from Fred, him and Jaylen running 2-man together is going to be very important because Jaylen's rim pressure makes it a lot easier for Alp to be able to get favorable mismatches, right? Because as we know, Fred can't get to the rim if there's life dependent on it. He can shoot, but he can't get to the rim. Team's loaded up. So that 2-man game that they ran really kind of slowed down as the season went along. But for him to get us to this level where we're a top 10 pick and roll team, to get Alp in the range of these big men that run it with frequency, because a lot of people think running the pick and roll, you have to be a lob threat or a pick and pop. No, you don't. There's a lot of ways and different ways players come into this type of play type. At the end of the day, what's important is can you score? And what differentiates the line of demarcation players, which I'm going to cut off. I'm going to say Jokic, but Sabonis, I don't really put him in this group. Jokic, AD, Embiid, Şengün, Vucevic, that group of players are totally self-reliant on their own offensive games. That is important in the playoffs. That is important in the playoffs because a lot of the lobs, you are not going to be running lobs in the playoffs. Defenses are too good for that, right? You're not going to be a lob threat big in the playoffs. If you're going to be one of those bigs, you better be blocking shots, running in transition, and getting rebounds. And there's nothing wrong with that. We saw Dallas do it with their big, with Derek Lively. We saw Rudy Gobert do it to not really a lesser extent, not really a lob threat there, but those type of bigs, you have to be able to be super efficient at what you do. The other ones, the MBs, the ADs of the world, these are the guys that are actually active participants in the offense. I think Fred unlocked that in Şengün, and I'm looking to see where Jaylen can take it with him next. And then as that relationship goes into year 2 with Fred, unlocking more to get him to that next level and getting for him to know when to roll. When do I want to pick and pop? When do I want to do the flamingo? When do I want to halt and get into isolation? When do I want to get downhill with it? When do I want to pick a post up? So these are things that he's going to learn, and I know Fred is going to be there to help him throughout the way.
Jaylen has so much potential. It's a unique perspective because in a lot of ways we're opposites. He has the world in his palm, which is great, but that comes with a lot of expectations. So I always just try to be there to support him.
It's your world when you got it. It's your world when you got it.
Like right, I'm telling him, like you got the ball in your hand, like nothing moves unless you want it to move. So just getting him to kind of be more in control and be more assertive.
Oh, here comes Green. Man, what a finish!
This is crazy.
Terrific move by Jaylen Green.
Green spinning.
Oh my goodness! Forceful, thunderous throwdown.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
As you guys know, my favorite saying is the Rockets are a Jaylen Green leap away from being a contender, and that still holds true. Like, I love what Fred was saying there. I've never seen that clip where he's saying F him. When you got the ball, bro, you just go cook. Go cook. We go when you go. And I love that because as a ball handler, as y'all have heard me say this time and time again, the team is going to go as far as Jaylen goes. Because if he's your most talented scorer, as far as theoretically he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be able to shoot. He's supposed to be able to get to the rim at will. He's super athletic, quick first step, a demon in transition, all these things. And then you're going to have the ball in your hands. You're going to take the most shots. You have to be efficient. You have to be efficient. And I love that Fred, as he said, if you watch the full video of the mini movie, basically he says there's some players you gotta build them up. Some you can be a little harder on, but it's all about instilling confidence. And I think he did a great job with Jaylen in doing that. Jaylen is learning to become a complete player. And I'm hoping this year that he puts it all together. I'm really hoping he puts it all together because if his confidence is right and he's making the right plays, making the right reads, being able to get to his spots, there's nothing that he can't do. Like we saw the stretch in March where he's able to do that against one-on-one coverage, right? If you give him one-on-one coverage, he's gotten to the point consistently, no matter what the team is, he can cook you. That is a great step towards him achieving his goals of being a star. If he can beat you in one-on-one, that is the step one. Step two is the defense is going to react to that, right? Can you counter? Once everybody knows you're good, everybody knows you're cold, everybody knows you're a bucket. Now we're going to fix our defense to address that issue with you. What are you going to do to counter? And to me, that's where he struggled after we started playing better teams in April after the March stretch, when teams with better defenses with more incentive to want to win that are trying to play for playoff berths, when they started sending traps, blitzing him, when they were double teaming him, when they were, picking him up full court early, kind of disrupting him in that half court. And he really, really struggled with those looks. So coming into this year, I want to see that trend continue upwards where he figures out the puzzle, where he solves the riddle and is able to punish teams with that. And I love what I've seen from Fred in that stretch. He took a back seat. Goes back to what I said earlier. This is why you bring in a guy that is like that is a vet, that is willing to concede his own ego to be able to take a back seat for these young players to be able to explore their games. You know what I mean? And I think that this is something that stretch that Jaylen had is so significant for his career because it gives him a baseline that he can use towards pivoting and solving that riddle once again. How do you counter when teams are tracked on you? You're the focal point of the defense for that game. And then the synergy between him and Alperen Sengun is going to be so important because if I described earlier, you have somebody that is scoring and able to self-create their own offense with another player that is a scorer that's able to self-create their own offense. In a vacuum, we've seen that before, Russ and Harden, all these two good players that play on the same team, my turn, your turn, that never works. They have to unlock the synergy between the two. Know when is my turn and when it's your turn. When do I leverage what you do well to the advantage of the team and vice versa? So to me, having vets like Fred and Dylan and these guys that are really passive vets that are still active enough to impact winning, but are able to guide them through these changes and give them that encouragement. And I love that because that's what these guys need, right? They need somebody to put a battery in their back to really let their talent shine. And they got to put the work in. At the end of the day, there's no excuses this year for any of our players, but for Jaylen, for sure, there's no excuses. But I love that Fred is a player that really, really gives him that confidence to do that because I think he's going to need it. And I do want to ask y'all for this year, as the season starts, give all of these guys a fresh start. Give everybody a fresh start. Let them show you over the games, not the first game or the first five, like over the first few months of the season, whether they've actually improved or not before we start trading them, cutting them, flipping them. Let them show you. Give everybody a fresh start. Give Sengun a fresh start. Give Jaylen a fresh start. Just let them show you because I feel like this year is the year they're going to take a big leap in with a lot of individual play, and I think collectively it's going to show.
That I had in Toronto and accomplishing the things that I did brought me to the point where it was time to kind of test free agency.
Fred VanVleet has agreed to a 3-year max contract with the Houston Rockets, and they lure him from Toronto, where he was a big part of that Raptors championship.
I was where I was, and the Rockets were where they were. They needed leadership, and this is what I love to do, is to help and, be that voice. So I think it just was a perfect fit.
And the question on everybody's mind is going to be, what do you do with Fred VanVleet? We have some young guards that we've drafted, Reed Shepherd, you got Amen Thompson, obviously you got Jaylen, you got Cam Whitmore. You got guys you got to pay with Jaylen and Sengun. You got Jabari and Tari coming up next. Currently, Fred is on the second year of a 3-year contract that is the third year as a team option for the Rockets. So essentially this year he could be an expiring contract. Like if the Rockets decide not to exercise his option this coming season after this one, then he would be a free agent, right? He would be a free agent. The Rockets would have that $44 million available to be able to use as they see fit. And they would be able to go into free agency with that or use that towards signing 2-3 players or one player, whatever they want to do. But my personal belief, honestly, I think if both parties are willing, that I would love a long-term relationship with Fred VanVleet. I think that what he's brought to the team is something that is going to be able to help us in the long run as we kind of hopefully get into the playoff ranks. I think he's the type of vet that he could still be a meaningful, impactful player, even as he transitions to having a lesser role as it relates to minutes and really impacting winning. Not saying he's not going to impact winning, but not for us to be dependent on him to be the guy that's going to help us go win a game on a night-to-night basis. When you hopefully Amen Thompson, Reed, all these other guys, Jaylen are guys that are stepping up. Şengün, Jabari, Tari, Cam, et cetera, et cetera. All our guys are stepping up into, into that their roles that they were kind of drafted to be. But that's going to be the challenge. And I'm curious to see what they do. Personally, for me, if I'm Rafael Stone, a perfect world would be for me to approach Fred probably after this season, start negotiations on not really exercising the third year, which is a 1-year contract for him to get that 44, but seeing if I could take care of him for maybe 2 to 3 more years, but on a less annual salary, right? So instead of him getting 44 and then, possibly hitting free agency, maybe I go with him and say, hey, can we do something like another 2+1 for, 30 million. So that's almost $90 million in a 3-year span. He gets job security. He's in a place that he's comfortable with, where he's appreciated. He has a significant role. His family doesn't have to be uprooted. And yeah, he's going to be taken care of as a basketball player until he's, 33 or however old he's going to be 3-4 years from now. So I'm hoping that's what the Rockets do. Restructure a long-term deal, take that third year off the table. Now they could still keep him in that third year. There's we could pay theoretically Jaylen, Şengün, and still have Fred on his 3rd year contract. I don't think that impacts that. And then, they could just do that and just renegotiate after the contract is up. I think if there's a way for us to get it lower without getting to that 40-some million, maybe free up some money to be able to do some other things in the free agency market. I think that would be the most ideal thing, right? That would be the most ideal thing for me. I would love to keep, all our vets here, right? But I do have a feeling that somebody's going to get traded. Now, as it relates, we have a lot of positions. We have a lot of young guys. There's a lot of players that are redundant in some of the things that they do. So obviously, it's not going to be a kumbaya ending where everybody's here. But the way I look at it, Fred is a key part of what they're doing, and I don't see a reason why he shouldn't be here to reap the benefits of the work that he's put in early on in these kids in our franchise going forward as we move into the next phase of Rockets basketball. So all in all, I just think that Fred has been the perfect vet for the Rockets. I think this season, my perfect role for him is a little bit more of the same, but less. So I like how he played, right? I don't want him playing 38 minutes a night, but let's cut down those minutes maybe to 30 minutes, and he still can, be the starter, close out games, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't need him just playing 30-something minutes, 30, 40 minutes for us to be able to survive games. I want to see these young guys take the bull by the horns, take those training wheels off, and start running the show yourself. That is what I want to see from the guys. I love this little mini movie. I love these things that when the Rockets admin and their digital media team drops things like that, because I really love the insight into the players and their thought process. And Fred is who I thought he was. He's a no-nonsense professional, and I think that's exactly what we needed. I'm excited about this year. I don't know about you guys. I'm really, really excited. I feel like this is going to be the year that we get on the scene as one of those teams that you have to really, really respect. But that is the end of this video. If you are new to the channel, why are you new to the channel? Hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. Big things coming for the Chop Shop this year. Stay tuned. Keep rocking with the Chop Shop, and we're going to keep dropping that fire.
DJ Candlestick. It's the Chop Not Slap Show.